been knee deep in slide decks. It's lovely. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days to spend some time with me and to listen to me talk ad nauseum about all things sophisticated, all things brain and gut. Today, we're going to focus on brain and gut. And I want to start with, I'm going to share my screen. Welcome to your sophisticated system. Every one of us is unique. Every one of us has genetics and natural impact on the environmental impact. All of these, the foods that we eat, the emotions that we emote, the families that we grow up with, all of these things have an impact on our sophisticated systems. Some of us have an intense physical addiction to over-processed food. And I say over-processed foods because sugar and flour over-processed are often linked to many people's reasons for food addiction. In my case, when I removed them from my food, when I removed them from my list of edible foods, I calmed myself. I released a lot of the external cravings. The physical cravings subsided very quickly, as a matter of fact. If you can get out of your system, 5 to 7 days is my experience with it, if you're physically intensely addicted to it. But there are also other foods that have, for me, nut butters is a trigger food. I'm vegan, so I don't have some of the other issues that some people have with dairy, but there are all sorts of other areas like dairy that can cause additional cravings. And if you can figure out what those are and remove them, you can really lessen the noise. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to do that, but this is a way to make things a little bit easier, to walk in automaticity for a time and then make a decision later on whether or not you want to reintroduce those foods. Several of the main reasons why we go back to the food are emotions. When we are, oftentimes we have a physical addiction to food, but we also have an emotional addiction. And many times that starts in childhood. It's one of the main ways that we can soothe ourselves if we don't have anyone to give a hug to or give us a hug. If we don't have the love that we needed growing up, if we have trauma in our lives, small or big, many of those things can impact our need to go to food. Some of us started early, some of us started later, but it's often an emotional aspect as well, which is why I feel that food addiction in particular, or food obsession, is really challenging. It can create a space where we really just want to grab a hold of something and just forget about it, to numb out or soothe. There are also safety concerns that come up, and I'm going to be talking about those in particular today. And when by safety, I mean when we don't feel safe, we pull back and create a space that helps us feel safe. That's one of the reasons I kept my barrier up. I didn't feel safe in relationships, and I kept my external barrier up because I was afraid of being attractive. I was afraid of catching the eye of someone and having to deal with yet another red flag filled relationship. So there are a lot of reasons why we feel consoled by the food. Stress beyond our control. Again, stuff we can't control, SWCC. Life, all sorts of physical and emotional and mental reasons why life might make us want to go back to eating. And like I said, it's what we've learned early and often to do. It's definitely a neural pathway we've created. And it's our favorite way to soothe. Components of our sophisticated system. We have a lizard brain that helps us watch for unsafe situations. It literally tells us if it's safe or not. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about why our lizard brains may be a little more active than some. That causes us to literally numb out and face plant in the food because we're literally in a fight or flight mode. We have parts that work hard to keep us safe. Those parts are often misguided, don't understand that our purpose now is for healthy living and making wise choices, because we want to live to be 99 and dance with our great grandbabies. We have parts that are thinking that we're young and pushing really hard on the one thing they know about. They don't realize we have a credit card and we can go and get a pedicure. Treat always means food until we redefine it. We have hormones that work to motivate and move us. We have a life that's tossing us curveballs and funny hats. And I don't have my funny hats right here. We have history that our brain keeps resurfacing. We have formed delightful neural pathways that we maybe have to abandon and let dry out. And we can't stop eating. It's not like drugs or alcohol. We can't stop eating. The brain-gut connection. So one of the things that I found really interesting in my recent research is the huge connection between the brain and the gut. I had no idea, and I just had this epiphany just a couple of days ago, that our gut is an integral part of our brain. When our gut is getting what I call bad foods, for the purposes of this discussion, when our gut gets bad foods, it doesn't send the right signals. It's too busy feeding the bad biome and not enough time feeding the good biome. The gut is integral to our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. I'm going to go into way more detail on the inflammation and other things that happen physically, the emotional and mental areas that our gut, for instance, our gut produces over 80% of our body's serotonin. How many of you have had, I don't know, 2 weeks of good eating and all of a sudden start feeling really good? It's because our gut is producing more serotonin. It makes sense. Our gut is getting what it wants and it's feeding quickly. Our guts are really responsive, really quick to flip over and stop feeding the bad biome and start feeding the good biome, and our guts start working more efficiently. Oftentimes, if our meridians are out of balance, and this is something else I'm going to cover today, we find it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy, because we've got stress from COVID and our muscles are all tense and we can't go get a massage because they're closed. And so we end up getting this tension buildup that creates this really big imbalance. Our meridians are the Chinese meridians is what I'm talking about here, in our system, that balances the Eastern medicine philosophy about Chinese acupressure and acupuncture. It's fascinating. And it's something, there's something fun I want to work with you today. So bear with me on this science, and then we'll get to the fun stuff. Our vagus nerve is integral to connection. And the vagus nerve is a really, really important component. They're finding out more and more every day about it. If we can keep our vibrational energy raised, and I'll go into a few ways to do that as well, we help keep our energy in a higher place, not necessarily a happier place, but a higher place, so that we're able to tackle all sorts of things. We're in a stronger position mentally. Hormones. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins are considered happy hormones. Cortisol and adrenaline are considered stress hormones. But how many of you know that cortisol and adrenaline are produced in great quantities when we exercise? They're also in great quantities when we go to a really intense project at work, or it is a really great motivator. So I want to say that these are not good or bad hormones. They are just hormones, and they make us feel certain ways depending on the circumstances. So there's a book that I just finished reading called The Molecule of More by Dr. David Lieberman. If you're interested in reading more about dopamine, it's fascinating. It's not a happy hormone necessarily, it's an anticipation hormone, which I think is a huge difference. If you think about wanting something, if you think about, since my brain has healed substantially, I can tell when I'm food fondling. And this is when dopamine takes action. When you start to think about food in a way that isn't healthy, when you're fondling your food. Our healthy gut produces 80% of the serotonin, as I mentioned before. I can't say it often enough. I think it's really important to hear. So feeding your gut makes you happier. And what happens when we release the numbing, soothing comfort of food? We get that cyclical spiral. We have a healthier gut, so we have more intense emotions. And we have more intense emotions because we're not soothing ourselves with food. So we have to figure out how to manage the foods and manage the circumstances and manage the emotions that are surrounding us. Stuff we can't control is out there rampant, waiting. And we can say we're worried about it. We can say we're anxious about that other foot drop or other shoe dropping. But in essence, the stuff we can't control could be good or bad. It could be happy or sad. It could be disgusted or giddy. We just don't know. So I like to walk through life assuming everything's fine. We get toddlers and tantrums when we're dealing with emotions for the first time. They're intense. We have to learn, unfortunately, it feels like I'm a toddler sometimes. I'm learning how to manage these emotions in a whole new way. And I need to be okay with that. I need to be okay with being buffeted by some intense emotion. And that's where the 90 Seconds to a Life You Love by Joan Rosenberg is a great book. If you're finding that you're really challenged by all these emotions, I recommend, and by the way, I will make sure these slides are available to you. I recommend that that you pick that book up. And she's also on some YouTube videos, and she's done some work with Ari as well, Ari Whitten. So she's a really great resource for the watching and noticing when emotions flood us and what that means. And if we can sit in it and let it subside, let the wave pass, can make a big difference for us. Again, a reminder that the gut microbiome is unbalanced and healthy versus healthy. It in fact impacts everything. If your gut biome is unhealthy, it might contribute to weight gain, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, other disorders. And again, to remind you, there are no good or bad emotions. There's a really great book called The Upside of Stress by Kelly McGonigal. It talks about this very thing, that stress can be a huge motivator. It can be a really great one. And I want to go off screen for just a minute. I want to share this story. So the very first time I felt intense anger was about 10 weeks into my my weight loss program. I was amazed at the intensity of the anger that I was feeling. And I went to my group and I said, "What is going on here?" And I got told, it was a recommendation to go to the surprising benefits of anger. And to me, it's not the anger that's the problem. It's our reactions to the anger. If we fly off the handle, if we say something that we'll regret, if we're creating an environment that's really hostile, that's what we want to avoid. But we don't want to stop being angry, because that's a physical notification that we are behaving, that we're paying attention, and this is an opportunity for us to put up a boundary, to notice that this thing is, no, this is a hill too far. I'm not willing to go here. It's a great motivator. All right, let me go back to sharing my screen here. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay. So a little bit about me. I have a PhD in me. We all do. Okay, you don't have a PhD in me. You have a PhD in you. My particular history is loaded with really fun stuff. I have a gut and autoimmune history, severe asthma, joint inflammation. I did the GAPS diet 10-ish years ago and healed my gut lining sufficiently to stop being asthmatic, which was huge. I was really, really sick. I am my favorite guinea pig. I've tried a bunch of different things. I've gone in a bunch of different directions based on issues that go on with visceral pain and discomfort, digestive issues, toxins and allergies. I can't say enough about saying goodbye to gluten. I highly recommend it. Fabric softeners and air fresheners are toxic. They're not tested internally, and they're on our bodies, and our skin is our biggest organ, and this is toxic time. So I highly recommend saying goodbye to those, using dryer balls and essential oils is a much better choice than going with the processed fabric softeners and air fresheners. Just my 2 cents. I also want to remind you that the industry out there is trying desperately to get us to buy their stuff. And I recommend Hooked and also the book Salt, Sugar, and Fat, both by Michael Moss. He's a journalist that deals with the food industry. And he's been instrumental in uncovering a lot of what's going on behind the scenes for companies that just want to make money. So they're making their products as happy as possible for us. Okay, this is our vagus nerve in action. And these are all the areas that the vagus nerve impacts. I just want you to hear there's no way I understand most of this. I do not have my PhD in neuroscience. I do have a PhD in me, and I look at this and I say, oh, adrenal systems, inflammation, metabolic rates. I see all of the possibilities here, the psychological and the physiological. Connections between the brain and the head, connections between our food and how we feel. All of these are impacted by this simple vagus nerve, which resembles a tree. So we've got the brain up here, which is the limbs and the leaves of the tree. And then we've got the roots, which goes all the way around and covers and surrounds our lungs, our heart, and our gut. It's a very important nerve. This is what it looks like underneath the surface. All of these different roots moving around and connecting all of these dots, and integral in so many ways. I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail about this, but I do want to tell you, if you want to read more about the polyvagal theory, there's a wealth of information out there. Dr. Stephen Porges created it or discovered it, or I don't know what the word is. He amplified it. And this is his theory, that we have 5 states, not 2. We have a relaxed state. We have a mobilization with fear, which means our fight. We have an immobilization with fear, which is fright, where our blood pressure drops, our muscles soften. We have an immobilization without fear, which creates safety and intimacy, like cuddling is encouraged. Think about when you're with your little one and you've had a long day, and you're consoling them. You're picking up on their angst, and your go-to is to cuddle. There's mobilization without fear, where we get competitive. It's definitely still fight or flight, but we're not afraid. We're ready for a fight. Come on, bring it. That's what the mobilization without fear is, which can be really exhilarating. So what I want to give you are some tangible tools to heal and calm and balance, because at the end of the day, all of this science only goes so far. All of what we're learning here is esoteric. It's in our heads, but it doesn't help us tangibly. And so what I want to do is give you some tangible tools today to help you maneuver around and notice when you feel calmer, when you feel more balanced, when you feel more healed. Because all of this impacts how we walk, how we talk, how we behave, whether or not we can stay on whatever plan we're on, whether or not we can have the strength and the agility and the temperament to walk through this world. So the first thing I want you to do, okay, I'm going to share my screen in a minute, but I'm going to come off right now because I want you all, anybody that can, please get on camera, because this is a fun exercise. And I want you to not feel anxious about what's going to happen, but I want you to hear that this is, in my opinion, transformational. It looks like you're in your car, Beatrice, so I'm not sure. You'll be able to do some of these. So I want you all to consider how you're feeling right now. You just got a bunch of science, and you may be tired. You may be exhausted at the thought. And what is all this stuff? Oh my God, I just got sent to a spiral place myself. You may be there. I want you to give yourself, on a level of stress, I want to give you to give yourself 0 to 10 a rating, and I'd like you to write it down. On your level of stress at this point right now. You don't need to tell me, but I'd like to know what your level of stress is for yourself. I want you to just take note of it. All right, we're going to do this little exercise. I'm going to share my screen in a different way. Okay, so I run a little group called Where the Magic Happens. And in that little group, some of you are here, some of you know, in that little group, we came upon this concept by Donna Eden. She's wonderful. She is a little syrupy. She's a little sappy. She's a little tree hugging, maybe a lot tree hugging. So I found her talk in a way that was maybe less tree hugging. So I just want to give her credit for this whole concept. So what this is a series of movements that are designed to help you with your meridian balance, which I talked about a little bit earlier. And she'll explain a little bit more about the benefits behind it. So if you can come on screen, I would love for you to give us your interpretation of Donna Eden's work. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. And this time we're sharing Donna.
This is a review of the daily energy routine that I hope you'll do every day so that you really come to know it and become very familiar. But in the beginning, you want to do the 3 thumps. And again, you can massage this if these points, if they're more comfortable to you. But to either thump them, tap them, or massage them. Here's K27. Here's the thymus gland. And here are the spleen points. And breathe deeply as you do them. The next energy exercise to do is the cross crawl, to make sure that your energies are crossing over. It's just an exaggerated march. You can hit the opposite knee like this, or just really swing your arms in this fashion, but do it long enough, say 20 times perhaps, something like that, so that your energy begins to feel like it really has crossed over. Do that enough, and your body will begin to retain the crossover energy more and more. All right, the next energy exercise is the Wayne Cook posture. And again, you sit down and you clasp your hands together and notice if your left thumb or your right thumb is on top. If your left thumb is on top, put your left foot over your right knee, your right hand around your left ankle, and your left hand around the bottom of your feet and your toes. If your right thumb is on top, reverse it. Put your right foot over your left knee, your left hand around your ankle, your right hand around the bottom of your feet and your toes. And you take very deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth about 6 times. And as you do it, you lift your body and lift your legs. You go. Then you put your legs down and put your fingertips together and do the same breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. I want to show a quick variation in case you're in a situation where you, or a circumstance in your own health where you cannot do that. If you cannot put your body into those positions, just cross your ankles and take your left hand, put it out in front of you, put the back of your wrist in towards your center, take your right hand, cross it over, and then clasp your fingers together. Pull your hands up underneath and do deep breathing in this manner. So if you find you cannot do the other, do this particular method, and it will most definitely benefit you. At least 6 breaths. Now, the next thing to do is the crown pull. And this is the manner in which you do that. You take your fingers and place them on your forehead and press in and pull your forehead apart so you can really feel the tension leaving is what you feel. And then take your fingers and sort of put them in curled finger position. Put your baby finger at the hairline and your other fingers going back over your head. Push in and pull apart. And go back over the top of your head. Push in and pull apart. Continue back over your head. Push in and pull apart. And push in and pull apart. Okay? Now here is a review of the neurolymphatics. If you have a partner, you can do the points along the back as was shown in the class. If you do not have a partner, you'll do just fine doing your own. So we start with right up here beneath the clavicle, massaging heart. And move out another inch and massage governing. And then take your hand over and massage in between that groove between the arm and the body. Take your other hand and massage in between the groove between your arm and body on the other side. Now you're going to massage right down the middle of your sternum, right down your chest bone. And when you're through with that, come right back up to the sides of the sternum and massage in between the ribs. And you're massaging lungs and gallbladder now. Drop to beneath the breasts, and there's a half moon on both sides. And you can start at the outside and just massage and come towards the inside of your body underneath the breasts. Now cup your fingers and start at the inside, at the bottom of the rib cage, and really massage small circles all the way down to the bottom of the rib cage, which is small intestine lymphatics. The next points are you just come in between where you just massaged and where the bottom of the bra line, there is a point right in between those two places where you can massage right here. And that is spleen meridian. Now, shake your hands off every now and then and come 1 inch above the belly button and 1 inch to the side and massage right there. That is triple warmer meridian. Drop down 1 inch to beside the belly button, and that is kidney meridian. Now, continue to drop down till you're at the top of the pubic bone and massage at the very top, and that is bladder meridian. Now, put your hands to your hips and just travel down the sides of your legs for large intestine meridian. You should feel some tenderness there if you're doing it right. Now massage the inside of the legs, and it is small intestine meridian. Those are the lymphatics. The very last part of the energy routine is to place your hands at your pubic bone and imagine you have a zipper and literally zip that energy all the way up to the bottom lip and lock it when you get there. So again, there are 6 steps in the daily energy routine. The 3 thumps, K27, thymus and the spleen points, the cross crawl, the Wayne Cook pop.
I'll be sharing this link with you in the slides, but I want to ask, I want you to think about where you are right now and what's your stress level right now and what's your energy level. How are you feeling? 0 to 10. That was 7 minutes. You can do this every morning. You can do this several times a day. What'd you say, Liz?
My stress went down a little bit.
Yeah. I'm ready for a nap now.
That's excellent. It is really supportive, and it's a really wonderful tool. All right. Does anyone have any questions at this point? I haven't looked at the Google Doc in a while. Are there any questions on there? No? Anybody have anything they want to ask? Okay. I'm going to go on with other ways to balance your meridians. I'm going to share my screen again. So Donna Eden, you can do that. It's actually only 5 minutes if you have the list in front of you, and I've got the PDF for that as well. But her explanation takes another 2.5 minutes. There's also tapping. If you go onto YouTube and search EFT and anything, literally, I've gone in there and searched EFT and procrastination, EFT and anxiety, EFT and anxiety over a specific thing. It's amazing what you can find there. And this is a really great way with tapping. We do this quite a bit. Well, not quite a bit. We do this whenever someone is super anxious and needs some support. It's one of our tools when we're working in the magic group. Tapping helps your body's energy and sends signals to the brain that controls stress. It automatically stimulates the meridian points and reduces the stress, just like what you experienced just now. And tapping in particular also helps remove the, move the stress point or the trauma from your amygdala, which is your trauma center, the lizard brain, the fight or flight, up to the hippocampus. So you're no longer stressed by that particular circumstance. It's really quite amazing. So there's a physical shift and an emotional shift that's really helpful. The vagus nerve there's a lot of information out there. I mentioned Dr. Porges. There's also a lot of work that's been done by Deb Dana. She has a wealth of information. The book I just finished reading is the Polyvagal Exercises for Safety and Connection. There are physical things that you can do to help move your little trauma. I'm sure you could work with a therapist that works with this type of thing as well to work with the big trauma issues. But I know that this helps subside some of the stress and anxiety just literally from COVID. It's very relaxing. You can you can also read the book "Accessing the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve" by by Stanley Rosenberg. He has several physical tools. He's a physical therapist, and he's taken the Porges theory, polyvagal theory, and moved it into some practice. I found this wonderful YouTube video. It's about 24 minutes long by the singing athlete. So one of the things that I've always done is sing. My mother is an opera singer, and so I come by the gift naturally, if you will, but I also love the experience of it physically. And it actually activates in a really positive way your vagal nerve. It lowers your blood pressure, just like if your vagus nerve is heightened with stress, it raises your blood pressure. It decreases your heart rate if you start singing. It decreases your heart rate, it reduces the body's responses to stress, and it improves your digestion. All really, really helpful, directly related to what we're working on as far as calm and balance. It helps lower anxiety, depression, even more challenging mental health issues. It improves immunity for conditions like colds all the way to lupus. I was amazed when I heard that. Because basically, if you're exercising your vagus nerve, you're stimulating it and lowering the need for fight or flight. It's basically calming. I want to stop for a minute. It's 11:40. We've been going at this for 40 minutes. I want to ask, how is everybody doing? I'd love to see your faces. Talk to me a little bit about how this is sitting for you. It's really hard for me to know if this is stuff that makes any sense to you, if you're seeing the dots that I connect, or if my brain's the only one that's noticing these connections to our food obsession. How is that sitting for you? You can go ahead and just unmute yourself if you want. Yeah, absolutely, B. I will absolutely get you a list of all the books that I'm recommending. Yeah, I know you're in the car and I don't want you to feel like you have to stop and write down.
Sonia, the last month or the last few months of this year, we've had some family deaths, and it's just hasn't totally spiraled me, but I had difficulty with one in particular and I went back to comforting myself. So I gave myself a lot of compassion, and now I'm back on the road again. So when you talked about the SWCC, it was like stuff we just couldn't control. It really helped a lot. And, but I know that I'm coming at this journey in a totally different place than I would have come to this point had I not been on the journey that without the sugar and the flour. And, but everything you're talking about just makes so much sense to me that I've got to look in other places. And it's being able to surrender and coming and just embracing what I need to deal with. That's going to be a big one for me. So yeah, all these tools sound really healing, and I loved doing the thing with Donna Eden. I think it really helped tremendously. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so sorry to hear about all the losses. I know that's the SWCC right there. Yeah. And we don't know what things like that are going to happen. But I can tell you that you're not alone. There are a lot of us that feel like toddlers at the checkout stand. My daughter's on the phone, and the one and only time she had a temper tantrum, she was 2 years old, and I had been reading all these books about how to handle little ones. And one of the things they said was to just let them have their temper tantrum, let them experience it, let them feel it all the way. So she went to the front of the store and laid down on the floor and just started kicking and screaming.
Mhm.
And I walked over to her and I said, "Oh, my dear sweet Jackie, I so understand how frustrating this must feel to not get your pickles." She wanted pickles. and it was just so delightful. And she just looked at me and it was like, "Oh, okay, Mom, I guess you do get it." I wasn't going to give in to her, but she
Right.
really appreciated that. And do you know what? That was the last temper tantrum that she had. I'm not saying, whoops, my watch. I'm not saying that that's a standard thing for toddlers, and that if you gave in, you're just feeding the monster.
Mhm.
But my sweet daughter did not have a temper tantrum after that, at least not until she was an adult. So my point in all of that is that, yeah, we get to experience these things in a whole new way. Many of us started using food when we were young. Many of us started using it as a way to subside and to not deal, because the emotions felt so scary. That 90-second book by Jane Rosenberg, I don't remember her first name. Yeah, 90 seconds to a life you love. She works a lot. There are lots of YouTube videos out there. I highly recommend, if you want some soothing around the fact that you're going to have to go through these intense emotions, and they're not going to kill you. They're not going to debilitate you. They're not going to turn you into some wicked witch. Another one I love, I do parts work with people, and the crone seems to be an archetype that comes up quite a bit. And what's interesting is often the crone is scary to people because she represents, old and haggard, but what she is wise and supportive and knowledgeable and patient when she's doing the job that is helping support you now as an adult. She might look like a hag when she's trying to support a 7-year-old. So thank you for that, Marissa. I'm really clear that all of these things help make our lives easier, help make our lives more simple. I don't want you to spend 6 hours a day on the phone with connection. I don't want you to spend, hours and hours weekly reading self-help book after self-help book. I actually use Blinkist. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's an app for nonfiction books, and they give you a written and an audio synopsis. I think it's like $70 a year, but they give you a written and an audio synopsis of it, quite lengthy, 15 or 20 minutes, and they're not always completely covering everything. Obviously, a 400-page book versus the synopsis, and they don't have every book in there that's nonfiction. But I would recommend that for the quick and dirty, the quick and whatever. And then of course YouTube and TED Talks really cover a lot of the same topics without going into the guts of a book. So are there any other questions? Okay, I'm going to just talk for a minute about raising your vibrational energy a little bit more. There's an aspect of mindfulness. Kristen Neff talks about mindfulness a lot. She and I always forget the other guy's name, created a course on mindfulness that goes into a lot of different aspects, and I highly recommend it. Eve Decker offers a really wonderful course on it pretty regularly. She's on my website. But again, what I want to stress is that when we're paying attention, we're in the moment, we're present, and we're more grounded and we're more balanced. Find something beautiful to appreciate. One of my favorite phrases is front-loading joy. I've used it before. It's really important to me to have to look at the joy, to look at to find the joy in your day. It raises your vibrational energy. Be conscious of the foods you eat. Think about where they came from, who grew them. Sit with them and enjoy them. I know they always say, I rarely get to sit down without a computer and a phone and something else distracting me. But if you're struggling with some things, you might want to try it. Sit down and be mindful and conscious of what you're eating. Drinking water, meditating, being grateful, practicing acts of kindness, getting your blood pumping. Courtney's running around and doing some great stuff there. And she's getting her blood pumping, just doing what Donna Eden does, get your blood pumping. It's an actual physical manifestation as well as a mental and a spiritual one. Singing at the top of your lungs. And then of course, dancing as if nobody's watching. All very important. I turn on really fun dance music in the shower and I jump and sing and dance and I just have the best time. Highly recommend it. The last area that I wanted to cover was post-traumatic growth. Now, this is a topic that this is another one where I've connected the dots. This is an area that is really important for PTSD survivors, for people that are survivors of trauma, for people that have a history that is causing them to spiral down mentally and physically and emotionally from something that actually happened to them, right? In this case, I've connected some dots and I see my life as an uber fluffy woman trying desperately to lose weight and being so frustrated by it for decades as a trauma point for me. I'm not diminishing other types of trauma, but I found this to be really a great correlation. And this is, again, an example of where I tend to connect disparate dots. So there are 5 domains of post-traumatic growth. There's spiritual development, which is a deeper cognitive engagement with fundamental, I'm not going to read all of this. We're not alone. There's a presence of a higher power. There's a concept. This is a helpful component. I want you to hear this is a helpful component. This does not mean you have to feel this way, but this is a helpful component in realizing that there is something bigger out there than just little old PhD me. Meditation, prayer, and connection, fully developed and meaningful beliefs and philosophies of life. All of these are components of our spiritual development. AA, OA, FA, UA, I don't know, there's a lot of A's out there, and they all work from the basis of a presence of a higher power. If you don't feel that you have a presence, take a minute to look into ways to develop yourself spiritually. I think you'd be amazed at how far you really are. The fact that we're not alone is a really important pivotal piece in understanding this. And it's really helpful in raising us to a phoenix level beyond those points when we feel lost and powerless and done. Personal strength. Reflection on personal strength demonstrated through adversity. That's what I'm talking about here. We have struggled and many of us have won, and we're continuing to fight and continuing to battle and continuing to know that we do hard things. You know, I mean, from an early age, I figured out I do hard things. I do the laundry and the dishes, and I change my kids' diapers, and I clean up dog poo, and I clean up my own act. And that's where we get to take credit for it, and we get to be very, very proud of all of the things that we've done, our resilience, our self-resilience. I want to say something about confidence building. Confidence is a muscle in my mind, like anything else. And the stronger you are in building that brick by brick, meal by meal, day by day, you're building that confidence muscle that ekes out everywhere. It's quite amazing how much more confidence you have everywhere else when you feel that sense of internal personal strength. Figuring out a way to reframe the hell out of everything. Greater appreciation for life. Again, the joy. Upheaval and major assumptions about the world and one's place in it. Basically what we're doing here and why. What's our purpose? The small joys in life are not taken for granted. Some of you regularly post beautiful pictures of your walks. Some of you regularly post the smiling faces of your sweet grandbabies. What's really important? That's what we focus on when we're looking at post-traumatic growth. Gratitude. I want you to think of something that you're grateful for yourself. Showing up here. Showing up. Speaking out. Something small, something big. Think of something every day. We all try to do our gratitude list every day. We all try to think about what we're grateful for, but we always focus on the outside. I'd love for you to focus a little bit more on you. What you did today that was fabulous. Connection is really a challenging thing. It's a real difficult issue for some people. And I would posit it's literally related to our gut biome and our vagus nerve. If we've got stuff in our system that is not working well and our gut is not producing serotonin, why would we want to talk to anybody? But why would we want to say hello to people? Why would we want to infest our stuff in theirs? When we start feeling better, when our serotonin process is improving, connection is really, really helpful. Even if you don't feel like it, even if you're an introvert, isolation is a big deal when we're food obsessed. We want to isolate. We don't feel good. We aren't happy with ourselves. Our savage default mode network is screaming at us, negative, negative, negative. When we can go and share and be vulnerable and ask for help and offer it unconditionally, we create beautiful bonds. New possibilities. This is what I want. I want to look at the future. I don't want to be obsessed with my food plan. I don't want to be obsessed with thinking about my food all day long. I want to live. I want to live. And I want you to live. And by living, I mean experiencing everything. And by not being afraid of the stuff we can't control. Because we have confidence in our own abilities to tackle anything, or to grab a hold, to link arms with all of our friends and say, all right, we got this. All right, everybody, it's 11:56. Can you open up your cameras and say a little bit of hello? Let me know how things went for you. We got 4 minutes. I don't want to go over. How was that for you? It was pretty heady. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the emotional components that are associated with some of the healing that we can do internally.
I especially like the part of post-traumatic growth, and I don't remember seeing that information ever before about the 5 phases, and so I deeply appreciated that part and all the rest of it.
Thank you, Joan. Yeah, I've shared that a couple of times, but just briefly. As you can tell, there's so much information out there. I have one of those brains where I connect dots that don't seem to be connected, and I notice things when there aren't. I consider it a beautiful gift. And when I saw post-traumatic growth, I was like, oh, hello. Because we are really phoenixes. Phoenixes with angel wings.
Yeah, really, really, really.
Yeah. Tomorrow, I'll be going over some of the body dysmorphia and the body reality. I have a lot of excess skin, a lot of excess skin. I could go on for days about our thresholds for body dysmorphia versus the reality of it. There's nothing out there that can measure our excess skin anywhere. So it's a fascinating topic, and we get stuck sometimes picking a number that we're supposed to land on. I landed completely different from where I thought. And I thought that I was a loser for quite a while, literally a loser, because I didn't lose down to what I thought was the magic number. There's a lot of psychology around all of these aspects. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the inner critic, and I'm going to go into my reframing around parts work. I'm going to go into the emotional aspects of all of this. There's a lot to cover, and thank you so much for sticking with me for this hour, and for listening and taking notes. I will post all of the books. I'll post them underneath when I get the recording up, and I'll post the slides in the files area. Any other questions before we head out?
This was excellent. This was excellent. Above excellent. I just so amazed about what a good presentation this was. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. Were there any questions that anybody had in the, I haven't even looked at the chat thread, so I don't know. Anything, Litz?
No.
Okay. All right. Today I would love it if you would post your takeaway, and I'll put that in the threads again. I am planning to give away some fun stuff, and maybe even a grand prize on Sunday. I offer private coaching and some other things, and I think I'm probably going to give away at least a session on that. But there's some discovery sessions available too that I want to offer to you. If you've got any particular needs, we are each unique. We are each unique, and we all have special little things that may be causing us to trip over, like I said, trip over that line in the sidewalk. All right. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you,
Bye,
Sonia.
everyone. Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sonia. This
Bye-bye.
was great.
Bye-bye.